Welcome back. The U.S. housing market made a big rebound this year, with prices rising 12.5% through October, according to CoreLogic. But could rising interest rates derail the recovery?
That and some new regulations coming on board as well. Rates on a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage are up almost a full percent since January. And if that trend continues through 2014, we could be up over 5% a year from now, of course. Could that derail the housing recovery? Joining us with their thoughts, Susan Wachter is back with us, professor of real estate at University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School of Business, and Mr. Fred Glick, CEO of U.S. Loans, Mortgage, and U.S. Spaces. That all fits on one business card. Welcome to you both. Fred,
yeah. Pleasure to be here.
Hi. Yeah, nice to see you. Fred, these headwinds we're talking about, the tapering, which will keep rates going up, and these new mortgage lender regulations coming through Dodd-Frank, will it be a tougher year next year or a better year, do you think, overall?
Well, there's an answer to that question, Bill. I think we'll be pretty steady. I think it'll be pretty much like we are right now. We're going to see a little bit higher fixed rates, but I think we're going to see a resurgence in the 10-1, 7-1, 5-1 arms that have disappeared because the fixed rates have been so good. We're also going to have a little bit of problem, mainly because of things like the Biggert-Waters flood insurance law that came out. I mean, that's going to be a nightmare in some places. FHA has lowered its maximum loan amounts in certain places. Right. But I think the good news is if there's employment, people are going to want to buy, and we've been making a beautiful recovery without the use of fraudulent loans like we had in the last mid-decade.
And that's why, Susan, I wonder if it's not weakness but strength in the housing market that's really going to have people almost worried this year and next year. And I think of a line from Jan Hatzius's Outlook where he says, you know, basically the fact that home prices have held up as well as they did in 2013 surprised us. And the Wall Street Journal, which has a story about how many of these metropolitan areas have prices back at record highs already.
And I think that's going to continue in 2014. I think it's going to be a better year. I think it's also going to be a tougher year in terms of getting a mortgage. But you know, rates are still at historic lows, and I think people will see that signal of rates going up and say this is a good year to buy. Rates are still low. Housing is still affordable. And the end result of that is we're going to see another strong year in housing prices going forward.
You think it'll be tougher to get a mortgage? It's already been tough through this recovery for various reasons that lenders have had, whether it's the higher capitalization rules or, you know, regulations or whatever it is. We got more regulations coming. So why do you think it'll be tougher to get a mortgage next year?
Regulations coming down. As of January 10th, we've got a whole set of new regulations added to all of the barriers that are already there. It's hard out there to get a mortgage, but if you've got very good credit, and also if you buy a house which is beneath the FHA limits, you're in. And of course, then if you have the cash to buy, put down, you don't need FHA, you don't need Fannie Freddie, you're in also. And the incentives will be to get in now. Prices are still relatively low, and relative to rents, it's still a buy.
That psychology is going to be powerful itself, because if people feel like rates might continue to rise and prices are at least not dropping, isn't that enough to overcome some of the headwinds you're talking about?
Well, what some of the problems are is that the credit score minimums are going up. So the people who were sneaking in at the 590 credit scores on FHA mortgages, that's over, because you have to have 640. So what we're going to see is people fixing their credit. It might take them a year or two before they're able to actually buy a house. So that slows down the number of first-time buyers, slows down the people moving up, et cetera, et cetera. And then the flip side of it all is, can we figure out a way to get lower down payment jumbo loans in places like Los Angeles? Because the prices are nuts there still. You're still cutting out a lot of people, and rents keep going higher. And eventually the rents will go higher. It'll make sense to get a mortgage, et cetera, et cetera. And hopefully everything will get a little bit better and mortgages will get easier to get, and we'll be fine. So I'm there for 2015. I think it'll be super.
I was going to say, I think you just made the case pretty well, but we have to wait a year, I guess, is what you're saying.
One of the real fuels. Well, go ahead. Go ahead, Susan.
I'm not as optimistic as Fred is that we're going to solve the mortgage regulation by 2015. I think that's a far longer story. I think that 2015 we'll see yet another set of difficult to get a mortgage. Nonetheless, rates are, for now, 2014, pointing to a very good year.
You know, one of the things that fuels home buying is jobs. Job growth is getting better, but it's not where the Fed wants it to be, even though they are going to start tapering. Fred, you're already nodding. Wouldn't that be a hindrance to some degree for next year, or at least put a cap on potential growth?
Well, I think what's going to happen is you're going to see different areas of the country that aren't going to add jobs, certain areas that are. That's what it's all about. You're also seeing a movement away from the ex-burbs and back towards the cities. And I think with that, that's where the jobs are. That's where people will move to. It just depends on the area.
It's all about the jobs.
I mean, there's just...
Yeah, I agree with Fred.
Yeah, it's all about the jobs. I'm not a professor like Susan is, but it's all about the jobs. She's 100% right.
Well, we don't have long to wait for that December jobs report. Comes out just after the new year. So, guys, we know we have to watch it ever more closely. Thank you so much.
Happy New Year.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
Have a great one.
See you later.
We've got about 40 minutes left to go.